this. This is Kendra with Twist TV, and I'm back with another video. And I wanted to make a video because I just got done contacting the mayor's office and just to discuss certain things that are unconstitutional, is specifically in New York City and all over New York, whether it be Nassau County, Suffolk County, Albany, wherever it is. I said Albany, not Albany. New York, whether it be in New York, the boroughs, whether it be in Suffolk County, Nassau County, the unconstitutional, and this is every state, but I'm addressing this specific state because this specific state is where I reside. So I wanted to talk to the mayor and discuss, and I didn't get to talk to the mayor, but the receptionist, about these unconstitutional things and how it should be addressed, starting with motor vehicle infractions. One of the biggest issues that we're having, especially as Black people, are model minority groups, is being over-policed, which causes a lot of interaction between Black people, specifically model minority groups, and white police officers who have a white supremacist or racial ideology. And we don't need to, when you are asking people to factualize systems that are in play, that you can even Google these unfair systems. You can Google the overwhelming amount of Black people who are targeted in ticketing, police brutality, that resulted in death or some type of blunt force that resulted into damage of their vehicle or damage to their bodies. And there's an overwhelming statistic that proves that the interaction between police officers with Black people leads to this kind of misconduct from the police officer. And then the police officer is not charged to the full extent of the law because of loopholes and clauses where it says if that police officer didn't commit this act the same exact way, or didn't commit this act more than once, then he claims, or it is alleged that he didn't understand it was wrong. But that's not true, is it? Because how do we know it's not true? Because police officers are trained in the police force to know right from wrong. They're trained to understand misconduct. They're trained to understand the Constitution and laws. That's why they're the enforcers, because more than anybody, they're supposed to know the law to be able to enforce the law. And if they don't know the law, then they should not be police officers. Their misconduct that results in people being killed or hurt or falsely imprisoned, right, or property damage, should actually be charged heavier than any criminal, because they are supposed to be upholding the law. And the fact that they are getting away with this misconduct is insanity, right? It should not be so. Right? It's literally unconstitutional to have them get away with things that by the Constitution violates your human and civil rights. Right? It violates. It's what people do not understand. And I wanted to even address the Constitution, even when we're talking about police officer and the diversity. In New York City and the boroughs, there's a heavy diversity, but even then, it's not enough representation of Black Americans, full Black Americans that are the police officers. There's not enough of them in Suffolk. There's not enough of them in Nassau. Black police officers, where they should be scouting for Black police officers that are American, not just foreign Black police officers. I know that there are programs in schools. I forgot what the program is called, where they teach them. It's like kind of like Army training. I forgot what it's called. But you guys, if you know what it is, you can comment down below. Where if you're training them for that, you can even train them for the police force, right? So that there's better representative. Also, if they be like, well, we don't teach them white supremacy, well, they should be vet better, right? Because you should not be allowed because we're all American. Under the Constitution, we're all American. Asylum seekers alike, along with Aboriginal, us reclassified Negroes and the 1924 Racial Integrity Act. We are all American. All of us, we're all American. And there should be no hierarchy amongst Americans. There should be no racial hierarchy, because America said that they're the home of the free, right? Where in this country, you're not to be excluded. There is no ruling party that will exclude you from protection from the police officers, or, teach them racial and prejudice bias. There's no constitution stipulating that if a demographic is, statistically proven to be violent or not, that they should be over policed. When according to the FBI database, that's not even valid. Statistics. As a matter of fact, black people are more likely to be exonerated than anybody else. And then to try to take exonerations and turn them into forced labor is also unconstitutional. Why? Even if they don't have a right to figure out whether or not they're innocent, the fact that you have no corroborating evidence to substantiate them being guilty is, in fact, you violating their constitutional right? You're holding them without any evidence, which is literally illegal. That's kidnapping, right? The state or the country is not allowed to kidnap someone, right? Especially if they have not been found guilty of the crime. You know what I mean? So if you exonerate somebody, that means that that person has not been found guilty, which means that they're innocent, right? So therefore, if you hold them without after doing due process or without due process, you are still violating the Constitution, which we still uphold and has been written since the 1780s, right? There's no clause in the Constitution that stipulates that a person is 3/5 human. There's no clause in it. It's talking about representation. It's talking about representation, and it's talking about taxation. But it's not an enumeration of the demographics for the correct dividing of taxes amongst the people and representatives to represent the taxation the dividing of taxation of the people, whether they are working class or not. But all Indians not taxed. And it said Indians specifically, not Native American. And so all these things are unconstitutional, where there's a hierarchy, a social hierarchy, a racial social hierarchy that controls government, that are in sectors where other people are left not represented in their own communities, we're American. Black people are American. And as a matter of fact, the most documented Americans thus far, only true Americans thus far. And to not have the representation in congressional offices, even in mayor space, in the spaces where mayors are representatives to talk or speak on our behalf, is full of foreigners who have only foreigners in mind, and that's not right. Because if we're all a part of the U.S. and we're all American, there should be representation for every demographic, and there should be no corruption, where a person can't tell you that they're going through something unconstitutional based on a white supremacist system, because the system of white supremacy should not even be allowed in America, given the fact that it is unconstitutional, because the whole point of the Constitution was to eradicate any racial hierarchies. So and there's too much documentation of police brutality, brutal force, specifically for minority groups, for there to be any type of rebuttal. You can Google these things. If you say black or brown, or if you want to say minority groups or whatever, if you want to say black and brown groups are treated by police, overly ticketed, over-policed, creating generational disparities, financial disparities in our community through these ticketing, where we're targeted. Statistics and data have been taken. You can Google it online, where it's clearly stipulating that there is unfair treatment to model minority groups and American so-called black people in America. And this is statistic, and it's predominantly is placed on black Americans, more than anybody else are targeted by these corrupt white supremacists or, racist national groups that get it higher in the police force with people with agendas in mind, and not to honor the Constitution, but to in fact undermine the Constitution by allowing these known white supremacists or known racial, right? And this is not alleged. We see the overwhelming amount of white police officers or even model minority groups attacking American black people. We see the statistics. We see the ticketing. We see the over-policing. And we see that there's not enough representation of full American black police officers who are not trained under the system of white supremacy to target, because this is a system, this is a cultural practice in America that everybody participates in, where you will even have model minority groups and black people alike who will terrorize black communities through over-policing or ticketing, motor vehicle infractions, turn to physical assault from the or physical battery or abuse or death even by police officers as a result of the communication between the two. So we have to call for change. We cannot continue the same old because the system is broke, because people are not honoring the Constitution and they're not doing what's right for all American citizens. Okay, America is not just for asylum seekers. It's for Aborigines and natives alike. It's not just for white people. It's for everybody. The Constitution does not stipulate an advantage of white people or wealthy people. It stipulates everybody be treated equal under the Constitution and are to be protected by the police officers, not brutalized by them, not harassed and stalked, not followed and watched. That is not surveillance. That's harassment. That is stalking. You can change the terminology, but if anybody constantly surveillance a people, specifically a certain demographic, that is racism, and that's stalking. Okay, because you are targeting. There should never be. There's no constitution or state laws or government laws or federal laws, or any government laws that stipulates if a person is more predisposition to committing a criminal act to over-police them. There's nothing. That's not the safety of a community. That's a racial bias. Because again, we're talking about black people making up 13% of the population, but 53% of the exonerations. There's documented evidence of hearing police officers with racial ideals, caught several times with, talking about plans or hurting black people or being unfair or unjust, and just there's too much evidence to support what I'm talking about for anybody to deny these facts. And again, you can even Google these facts. You know what I mean? So there's no me making things up. There's enough evidence all over social media. There's enough, that's why the reforms were being called for. Is because of police brutality. Nobody's against police officers. We're against corruptions. We understand police officers are needed. We understand their duty. but their duty is not to protect and serve an agenda of the government or some white supremacist regime. That's terrorism. If you're upholding a racial hierarchy that is resulting in the terrorizing of other demographics, that is not government. That is not a human or civil or or a constitutional right. You have a right to assembly. You don't have a right to assemble to attack others. That is considered a terrorist organization, right? When one comes against a certain demographic, such as the black community, under one accord through policing, through mass incarceration, through weaponizing laws that specifically target black people with the illusion that it is for the people and for everybody, but in a substantial amount of evidence that surfaced to show the unfair treatment and unfair judicial system and legal systems that specifically target black people using semantics. And this is semantic games that is notable and notably done in court proceedings and in policing. That black people in America are greatly being targeted, as well as other model minority groups, Hispanic and Latino communities. And this is unfair and it's unconstitutional. The whole point of the Constitution, which is still, no matter if America got new owners, the Constitution was not tossed. So they have no legal right to act according to white supremacy using any guidelines, any laws that is unfavorable to any other racial demographic. Is unconstitutional. Nobody's asking you to be perfect. We're asking you to do the right thing. That's two different things. Nobody's saying get rid of police, that all police officers are evil. No one's saying that. We're asking them to conduct themselves. You don't be biased.